Hey there, Stev here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Gonna jump back into a chess game, and today I'll mix it up a little bit and play against a live opponent, or a random one. I sometimes ramble on a bit before starting games, so I'm gonna start adding chapters to the videos, and if you want to skip ahead to the game, there'll be a chapter for that. So yeah, before kicking off, I just wanted to say a bit about my online play. I generally don't play online that much these days. I found I was moving more and more towards the blitz side of playing, and um, blitz starts getting, or bullet especially, starts getting quite intense. So if you'll see here, my rating drops off quite a bit as I get to faster time controls. I'm not a very quick, maybe even intuitive player. I like to spend a bit of time working out moves and such, and you can see my rating dropping all the way up to daily. I have reached about 2000 on daily. The chess.com ELO ratings are a little bit inflated to what they are on average, but basically what I found with playing a lot of blitz or bullet games, it's very addictive. Games are back to back. If you get into a losing streak, I was getting quite frustrated and would sometimes just go like on a binge, just playing for 3 hours or 4 hours at a time. So, and then after playing uh, like I'd be very worked up, mentally worked up, and then maybe not be able to sleep after or be on a bit of a buzz. So I've kind of shifted more to either doing puzzles or playing against bots, playing challenges against bots. I feel like you can take your time with those. There's no time limit, and you're also playing against opponents. They're a bit more predictable and they're a bit more, well, a higher level because I like to the level I can play at in a fast time format I always feel stifled by the speed of the game, and I would rather play a longer game with a bit higher level play. So, and I think the bots can give you that, and then you don't have to worry about the time difference. Another thing I would say for your own play, you might not have this, but I've gotten better and I've played most of my chess online. And I find if I go to some over the board events, I would struggle to kind of see the board as clearly when the pieces are 3D compared to when they're flat like this, and um, everything looks cleaner. And so over the board, sometimes you're not used to the look of the pieces. They're also standing in front of each other, and that would even extend to one of those boards you walk over, pick up the pieces. So like the pieces are the size of a small toddler or something. This might not affect everyone, but I feel like if you want to play chess more at actual events, which are good fun. There's a nice social aspect to that. Maybe practice playing over the board, or even you can get like these smart chess boards that are sensitive to where the pieces are, and it can link up to an app or a bot, or even just you have your own board and you play out moves. If you're playing online against a bot, let's say you just play out the moves as they're coming up in like the PGN or the Fen string. So yeah, just to get practice for me at least, there's quite a difference between those two methods. Another thing, so if you want to say improve your play and such, what I would try to focus on is to kind of work more from principles rather than direct lines. So, because you can get caught up examining, there's an infinite amount of lines. So say you have some position on the board, like this, for example. These moves are in and such, and then you're wondering, and the black's got a few moves in. I don't know, let's just say he's mirroring you. And you're trying to work out, okay, if I put my knight there, and then he captures there, and then I recapture here, And then he brings the knight out there. And oh, well, what about this other line if I put the knight here? So it can cause you to use up a lot of time and kind of distract the analysis. So I think a good efficient analysis starts with kind of just looking at the position as a whole. Just trying to draw some arrows. And this will come with practice, but sort of thinking more in concepts. A good chess game is like exploring a story, right? You think in layers. So you think first, okay, I need to get my king safe. I need to maybe control the middle. I need to protect my pawns. I need to have them in a good setup. And then you work out, okay, does this piece look like it's in a funny place? Does my opponent piece look like in a funny place? And okay, how can I take advantage of that? And then once you sort of have a target of what you want to do, then you work out a line or two, and you don't go too deep, just to try to reinforce that, to try to make it a reality. So you start with first what you want to do, and then you only work out your lines, and you don't have to go super deep, and it will come with time where you just kind of intuitively play something, but you're not sure, like, oh, is that a big blunder or not? You just kind of play it. You work out maybe one or two lines. That piece isn't hanging there. There isn't like a double attack. You know, I have a piece here and there, and the queen can come here and attack both. Yeah, so I think that's a good approach first, and then you work out how you're going to achieve sort of your goal. And the same thing you do for your opponent. It's important not to ignore your opponent. They're another player. They have their own ideas too. So you kind of work out what they're looking to do. And you can always start with what piece do they move last. Maybe they move the queen. Maybe they move this pawn because they want to get the bishop out of the way. Stuff like that. So yeah, that's one approach I think to getting better. And another one I see people do is using engine analysis. So after your game, if you won or lost, you might go and see what the engine had to say. I would use the engine. I think it's a good tool. It's taken a bit of the beauty out of chess. Like for me, the best part about chess is just that you have this kind of infinite gold mine to explore. You can just dig out new potentials. You can go back to a pro game 50 years ago and find a new analysis. An engine's kind of taken that out. They've taken the soul out. There's a cold number for the position evaluation. There's a couple of the top best next moves and lines. So use an engine to check your games, but try to use the engine only if you're stuck, I would say. So as you play the game, there might be a couple of moments you were like, should I have moved the pawn one or two spaces here? You weren't sure, and then 5 moves later, you weren't sure. So you might remember a couple of moments that you were wondering about which is better. And then check the engine. Maybe it's going to suggest a move, and then try not to just follow that whole line down or a bunch of the lines, like at every move. What was the best move here at every position? Try to like see, okay, it's suggesting this move, or you try to work it out yourself. But if you see its suggestion, try to work out why does that work out better? Because sometimes the engines have these very particular, very direct, specific improvements, but it's not going to help you much. You're going to review the engine's analysis and then completely forget it in the next place. So try to kind of work it into that sort of story concept, like what was it trying to achieve here in kind of a human term? So it was trying to break up my opponent's pawn structure. It was trying to expose an attack or something, or it was trying to grab space on the queen side, for example. So look at that and then kind of build it into your play and improve. Okay, so without too much further get up, let's get into a game. Hopefully we have a good one. I am updating a program, so hopefully my internet doesn't cut out in the background. But we're doing a 15/10, so I'll get 10-second increment, which is a good amount of time. At this level, I don't think there's too many cheaters. think that's more as you get to the 2000 rated level. But this time format is where a lot of cheaters like to hang out because it's just an odd time format. Pro players don't really play it, so they might not get caught out as often and such. So it is something to be careful if you're getting more to the 1900 mark. All right, so let's see what game we get and if it's even going to work, because my internet has been quite slow. If we can't find with the 10-cent increment, oh, there we go. We got a game. And so we're playing as black against the 1400. Now I like the Scandinavian, which is just where you go here and there. So let's just get that move on the board. My other option to e4 is Sicilian, or sometimes an Italian game. Well, it depends on white, I guess. All right, so captures. Now you have a few options. Obviously, the immediate response from white is usually to attack the queen. You have some options where to go. These are generally the main ones. I'm going to play the most standard one, which is just queen a5. And the Scandinavian's a bit of an anti-chess type of game. You're kind of antagonizing white. You're breaking principles, moving a queen out. And you're not looking for anything crazy, although you could get a wild game where you castle queenside and white castles kingside. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. The other option, which I'll probably go for here, is just something slow. So I need to speed up a bit here. Something like this, maybe this, and you always want to include c6 just to be able to give that queen an option to jump back to d8, c7, b6, one of these squares, if it's challenged further. f3 is a strange move. It's a very strange move, I think. Usually white's looking to have these options, so I think he's trying to stop a knight jump, but immediately this diagonal is kind of weak. So I'm thinking maybe some kind of e6 and maybe even c5 might be a nice idea here at some point. So let's start with e6. I do keep this bishop stuck in, but it can get out some other way later. So I'm trying not to go too deep with a bunch of calculations and such. Maybe I was worried about my knight coming in here and the bishop there, and then my knight captures with this knight pinned. I don't know. So we'll just start with this. But yeah, this diagonal looks a little bit weakened, is my first thoughts. So can I do a move like c5 here? And what's going on there? Maybe bishop e3? Take, take, and then maybe bishop b4 there. It's a possibility. Or knight c6. But in general, you want to keep the flexibility of c6 to get the queen back here. The only thing I'm thinking c5 is just to pair it with this bishop move, because I haven't decided yet where to place the bishop. But I also have a queen b6 at some point to put pressure on both of these. So bishop b4 now, I think this is just an easy defense. I don't see a great point to doing this. So let's try c5. I've never played c5 out of the Scandinavian. It's almost always c6. Yeah, we'll see what white's got in mind, because something like this, I can even then play knight c6, and I'm putting pressure on d4. This pawn is defended twice. So yeah, it looks interesting. Okay, so defends with the knight. So I assume on takes, knight takes, and bishop c5. Just defend that with the bishop. But now I can just increase pressure. I think I've got a pretty good position. So knight c6. White could go and pin that knight, but I think it's losing some time, possibly. I could break the pin in one of these ways. And this just asks the question again of this pawn. Obviously, a move like bishop e3 is probably... Actually, there's a problem with that. Just realizing. So I have to go back there, and then I might be threatening to win that pawn, actually. So might already be getting a bit tricky. Although some kind of knight move, and then maybe bishop b4. No, it's interesting. Knight move here, actually. And I can just take that. Yeah. So we'll see what white wants to play here. Could go for d5, but it's not defending that, so yeah, that's just a bad move. At some point, if I get castled, then I need to watch out. I don't really win anything on this square because some bishop h7 and exposes the queen attack. So yeah. So he goes for this pin on the knight and defends d4 here. So I want to leave this tension here for now. And I'm thinking between either a6 or bishop t7 just to break the pin. I think if I can get my bishop, because sometimes the problem in the Scandinavian is sorting out like these two pieces, especially this bishop. And if I can get the trade to happen, I'm going to be pretty happy with that, I think. So I'll play bishop d7 here. And white's getting kind of tied up in my opinion because of this strange f3 move. You're normally just looking to reinforce the center, the knight coming there, the bishop coming out on a good diagonal. So I think here there isn't much benefit to taking this way. So we'll get the bishop on a good diagonal. And already moves like this, or even castling queenside, which I wasn't going to do originally, but this might be a nice option. And white's just having to spend this extra time to think because of this tension here. It's just a bit of an extra question. Okay, so this is a normal good follow-up from white against the queen being on a5 is just to bring the bishop here and look for a nice knight jump that will expose an attack on the queen. So I need to think about how to deal with that. There's a few ways. You could obviously drop the queen back. And I think maybe the queen's done its job here now. And my bishop controls these squares, so a move like queen b6 and still looking at this diagonal. Looking at this pawn, I don't know if I will actually take that. Is pretty good, and stopping like a knight jump here to harass that queen further. And then maybe I can look to castle on the next move. I could castle now and just decide how to deal with the knight jumping out of the way. But I think I might be having some problems for myself, so So let's just go with this one. And that will speed up a bit more now. So now I'm putting pressure again on d4. Taking this pawn is a bit suspicious because of a move like that, and then you're gonna have to go here, maybe move there, and your queen's getting kind of kicked around. There's no light squared bishop though, so you could be quite happy probably on a6 here eventually. So what's white should be looking to do here? Castle is an interesting move, I will say the least. Castle's very interesting because I think it just gives me a pawn. Takes and maybe this. No. Yeah, I think I can just take this pawn. I don't see what is the problem here. That looks very dangerous. I think white should maybe address this tension here. So I will just take that. It's a pawn. Whether or not I can hold this pawn is not too important to me. I do need to get castled at some point, but could consider maybe castling on the last move and then just having this rook opposite the queen. But a pawn's a pawn, and the bishop can't go to e3, importantly here. So I have a bit of a dangerous discovered check available to me, even if the knight moves out of the way. So I think white's already in some trouble here. And this is the thing, if you just play kind of sensible moves, you look at a few lines, you see something strange, you try to spend a little bit of time, but not too much, to think about how you're going to kind of punish your opponent for doing that. But you don't want to go tit for tat, not like if they do a strange move of the opening, oh, I'm going to punish that in one or two moves. You just kind of look at what it's kind of breaking from that opening principle and how could you sort of line up to put a little bit of pressure on that. Okay, so it takes with the knight. That just looks like a piece here. There's no discovered check on my queen. So, and it comes with check as well. And next move, yeah, this is looking quite bad. I think I can just castle and put more pressure on this bishop here. And then if the bishop moves, I could trade queens. So that's one option to me. This bishop's on a very nice diagonal, so at some point that could be a tactic to look at. But I think for now I'm just going to castle. It was a plan before. If you can't see a reason why not to, you can just carry on doing it. If the bishop moves out of the way, well, where can the bishop go actually? Because, well, the knight is defending the queen, luckily for white. So if it went here, I could just take twice on that square. But luckily the knight is defending, because either way the bishop moves to the back, I suppose it could come here as well. And I can choose what to do then. I can either exchange pieces or just develop my own dark square bishop to a good diagonal. Maybe b4. At some point this could be kind of fun. Okay, this is fantasy chess here, but something like this and then a queen into here, and if you take, you get this nice smothered mate. But this is fantasy chess. Okay, so bishop g5. All right. So I guess if I don't exchange queens, what white probably wants to do is to like get something like this going. So that could be an idea. I don't think I need to exchange queens here. I know that's the general principle, is if you're up material, which I am, I'm up an extra bishop, essentially, for a pawn. Not even for a pawn. You should exchange your queens, but I think I keep my queens on a good square right now. I can't see a nice jump. I maybe could go to b4, but so I think I'm just going to bring the bishop out somewhere good. Maybe to c5. I just need to be careful for a knight jump. So say I bring the bishop here, takes, and my bishop is covering a lot of knight jumps, so that's not a big worry. So I think c5 is probably a better diagonal. Yeah, we'll go there, and then we have the option to recapture with the bishop if white wants to trade queens. And my next moves I might be looking at something like h6 to break this pin. Maybe bishop f4. Sorry, queen. I could have played queen f4 immediately, actually, and would have forced this bishop back, because exposing the attack on the queen, my king is defending the rook here. So that was an option. Maybe quite a good option, actually. Okay, so now white's stopping that, and yeah, trying to get the rook here. Okay, so now my queen might end up getting kicked around. I've got control of the position though, so I'm not too worried. They've stopped this idea. That was one reason why I was thinking bishop b4, because I might have just exchanged a bit on here, although I have to be careful about something like this. Alright, so aside from obvious tactics, I'm just going to give this bishop a kick. My queen can go, I think, to b4. It is short on squares, so I need to be careful about that. But luckily, I think b4 is fine for the queen on a move like rook d1. Yeah, might have been kind of an issue. I could have considered sacrificing it worst case. I'm always looking to do unsound sacrifices. Something like takes, I don't know, takes, like that. I don't know how sound that is though. Okay, so coming to b4, on a3, I may have to consider, it may be safe to take the pawn, but I personally don't like it. But these bishops give my king some nice cover, so yeah. And also I'm on the knight, so I may be able to take this. Again, the knight hasn't got those good jumps. And yeah, I still want to keep this a complicated game. That's why I didn't want to exchange off the queens immediately. Let's just see. I'm giving my opponent more chance to get some pressure on the game, but I feel like with their rating what it is, I have a bit of space to go for that. So what should white be looking to do here? Well, probably keep pieces on and try to make things as complicated as it can. Maybe bring this rook to the center. I don't think it wants to give up this file, so. And also, obviously, it needs to address what it's doing with that bishop there. So maybe a move like this is a possibility. And then I might need to move the queen again. Okay, so it goes for some interesting tactics when it's going to be on this. So I didn't see that, honestly. That's an interesting move. I don't think it works well, because I can just take this and then take there. My queen is defending that bishop. So I think the idea was that if I were to have... I don't even think it works at all. But if I took here, it's double on this piece, right? So takes, I don't even know what the idea was there. Yeah, I don't know what's the idea. All right, let's work this out. Okay, so takes, is it rook takes or bishop takes? Rook takes, check, takes, I guess bishop takes. Then I have options, right? I would love something like this, but that doesn't work. So, I mean, I could go here, rook takes, bishop takes, queen takes. And then take the bishop. So I'm bishop up. I don't think that helps much. I can also just take with the bishop here and keep things simple like that. And when they recapture, I just take this, and I don't see what to. So I think that's probably just the best option. And on this and then this, which is what I'm expecting. Can I take here? And then I guess rook takes, takes, takes. I'm on the queen, so let's just do that again. So takes, spending a bit of time on this, but yeah. So takes, takes, takes here. I think they'll have to recapture back. And then I can take there. Let's do that. I feel like I'm getting another pawn, but maybe this was unnecessary. Why don't I just take the bishop? Actually, that was just, I don't even know why I was calculating that. Yeah, that was not, what? Should I just took the bishop. This is a free bishop, right? Yeah. I don't know why I was trying to calculate all that for nothing. Maybe something like this. But I think white needs to start being careful. No, I'm still 2 pieces up. Yeah. So this was fine. Yeah. Getting confused by strange moves from my opponent. Yeah, so they do play that. Okay, so here, this. Do I have anything there? And then I can just put the queen there. I think that's fine. And on here and there, I can bring the knight in. So yeah, I think this is getting a bit dangerous for my opponent. So obviously threatening mate there on h2. So I don't have to, I can ignore this attack on the knight for the moment. And the other thing I was thinking why it wanted this move probably was to get at this f7 pawn and maybe break up these pawns over here. Okay, so it goes for that and then wants an intermediate check. So if I capture with the king, which I probably have to, what's it going for there? Check here, and I come back and then maybe here. I don't know, let's find out. Otherwise we're losing a piece, so. But I can also just block here. Which I'd prefer not to do because I want to use my knight in some kind of attack. To g4 ideally. Yeah, no, knight to g4 and in that other line the queen wouldn't be able to take because of this pin here. So I'm still 2 pieces up for the moment. I could also go to d5 actually. This bishop is hanging, which is not the best, but white has to deal with this mate threat, so let's see what white comes up with. And I have options how to get out of the check. So I think, barring a major slip-up, we're going to be able to take this game. And if you guys like this, let me know, and I can do a follow-up video. Okay, so the plan was just queen here and get the queens off. But I can also play queen takes g3. I'm not threatening mate there, so we'd have to consider the check there. And what's my idea? Just, I can't take with the rook. I'll just keep things simple. We'll go for this check. White's forced to exchange, I believe. Maybe they could go here, but okay, so he gets an f7 pawn in the end anyways, but things have kind of simplified a bit. Yeah, and so we can start doing some tactics now. So check here using the pin. And the only thing, I don't know what I need to be careful of. Obviously this rook's quite nice and active. Gonna look to gather a few pawns. So at some point we probably want to exchange that off. Now where does my knight want to go? Is my question. Let's just put it here. We'll defend this pawn for now. White can have that pawn, that's fine. At some point I want to round up this pawn and get two pieces on this pawn. That's kind of my idea. So I think some move like this. I can just move the king up to defend that. So we'll go here. Oh shit. Wow, see, this is why you can't be too careful. Wow, okay, I just totally missed that move. Yeah. I don't think it's game over, necessarily. I still have two pieces and some active pawns. So let's see what kind of trouble we can stir up with this. Yeah, one move. Yeah, you just have to be careful. I just forgot about the rook in the corner there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The bishop's probably on its ideal square right now. So the question is, do I want to hold on to this pawn with a move like that? But c3 and we can drop back and white starts getting rolling with those pawns, or I could just give it up. Which is kind of where I'm leading to right now. So my opponent's asking for a draw. We're not having any of that. Okay. I would prefer to not try to hold on to that pawn. I do have that extra piece, so there is yeah, I'm confident I can scoop up the pawns from white, but we'll have to be quick about it. So I think I'm going to have to use these two pieces, and I want to keep my king around these pawns. And basically I need to just keep one of these pawns alive. Is kind of the goal here. So immediately I have a check here to win one pawn. And they don't see that, so we will take that. And if I have to sacrifice a piece, I just need to, I need to be careful for this pawn might be quite quick coming down the board. So let's grab that. And I do have some nice checks to jump around and get my pieces hovering more around the queening squares of this pawn on the a file. So immediately I won't be able to have a stable square for the knight, unfortunately, which is a piece I want to get in. So just trying to see if I have time for this. Let's start with that. Let's harass this pawn because I want my bishop on the other side of this knight, basically, when I do bring the knight in. So maybe I could have gone for that already with something like that and then that. I should have, I mean, my opponent just had to move to a6 there, but, and I may have to give up a piece for this pawn if I'm not quick enough. Let's see. It's a7's last square that I can actually stop it from with my bishop. As you can see, my king's actually quite cozy here with these very fractured pawns. So my opponent's thinking, I mean, they should just move that, possibly. Okay, so something I have to watch out for here, say I take, is a move like this, takes, and that. And I'm not sure if I can stop that. So I think I'm going to just try to get the knight in a little closer. I need to be careful here though. It's getting quite close. Yeah, so my bishop's probably on the wrong diagonal, to be honest. So, okay, move here. The rook can't attack that. But the rook could go here. And then what am I planning after that? Okay, or the other options here, there, there. And if he takes, pushes, that's also a problem. So I think I have to go here. And now this tactic doesn't work because I will probably lose the bishop, but I'll have enough pawns and I can just take and then the knight's guarding that square. So so you can go there, but I don't mind this as much because now what I have time for, I thought I might have time for it. So it's to take and come around this way and put something on there. But after I take, he could go here to harass the knight. And if I go there, I suppose then I can go there. So let's do that. It might just be holding, but I will have this bishop kind of having to find a home on this diagonal, which isn't ideal. Okay, now this is just a bad move, I'm pretty sure, unless he wants the check here. That's his idea. I don't really want to move my king. So the idea is you can just, if you expose the king to a check, then you can queen on the next move. You have a free move, basically, to queen. So I might have to sacrifice or move the king here. But I have just given a free move. So that's actually a good move if he sees all that. So I might have to give up a piece here. I don't really see a way around it. So there, check, there, and then just queens. Alright, would have to take that. And with these disjointed pawns, try to get one of them to becoming a queen. So I'm going to start moving this already. Again, my king's ideally placed, and I can get a pawn all the way to g3. The only thing is I'd rather my bishop on f2, because I won't be able to move, and he can surround it with the rook and king, but he won't ever be able to trade the rook for bishop in this pawn, because these two pawns will be winning. But I'd rather my bishop had some flexibility and wasn't stuck. So let's see if he goes after this pawn or not, or if he goes after the bishop, for example. So now I think I want my bishop not to be there. If I put it here, obviously I'm going to lose the bishop after a check there. So I could put it here, but I don't know if I can ever find a stable square for it. that's just something I have to think about. So yeah, how are we doing that? Let's try this because I just don't want it stuck there. I don't know. Maybe I can work it around somehow. The only problem is I'm potentially losing this pawn though. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to play a bit quicker here. I don't want to get caught out from approaching these pawns, so I want to get my king closer to where these pawns are queening. I want a g5 actually there, but right now the king can't approach these three squares, so that's quite good. He could attack the bishop, and then I was thinking of potentially this, and then maybe this. That was kind of my idea. Yeah, I think this works. And on, no, we can't do the check, yeah. So I'm keeping the bishop a little more flexible, getting my king closer to these pawns where they're going to queen. And I'll check this with the review afterwards if it's a draw or not. Obviously, they blundered the rook there, so you can play as well as you like. But if you mess up, so rather than fixing this pawn, I want to get this pawn going. And this gives my king the option to go here. And again, this king is, I really think white should play king f3 here. But this king can't approach these pawns, so it's kind of obstructing a bit of what white might want to do. And I can even march my king here and there if it's not careful and give this up. So yeah, white does play that. I'm thinking either this move. Let's play this for now. And I just want to wait and see what white does. Okay, so just moves the rook out of the way. Okay, and if I want to make progress now, can I make progress? Can I do something like this and then this and that? That's what I'm wondering. Or do I need to defend that? So here, I don't have a lot of time, so let's just make moves. Just wondering if it's going to come around here. And I want to leave this, I don't know why, I just wanted to leave this as a option. Yeah, obviously now when it does the check there. Alright, let's push the king further away. Now these pawns have made progress. The bishop is sitting very nicely once it's defended there. So we might have something here. Might not as well. Because I'm thinking there, 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 and then I come around and closer. I don't know if I can ever push the king away, so I probably have to push yeah, because I can't push it with a pawn, right? So I probably have to make some progress with this other pawn if I want anything. Alright, that's a good check. We'll go here. This bishop is eventually going to be cemented in. Okay, I don't know if this is winning or not. Now maybe given the chance. Yeah, I would have rather had my king over there. Been pushed away from the pawns now, and white's gone his king to an ideal square. He wants to get around the back to this pawn here. That's his idea. then I don't know if it's winning so much. All right, we're gonna have to just play, because if I try to defend that, it can just check me indefinitely. So I think if we go here, there, takes, there, well, the bishop's dropping, right? Yeah. Oh, if it's a draw, it's a draw. Because can I go here, there, there? I don't know, get out of the way and block with the bishop, but I don't see that really working. So let's just push. It's probably a good move. So just pushing me away now. Should I block here? No, because I want to get my king closer to. But he's got now. That's annoying. He's got that, and my king's on the same file after he takes the bishop. It's because I was looking at tactics of. Okay, now this is not good play, I don't think. I want to get my king here. And at some point, I'm going to be able to block with the bishop, potentially. Uh, right. Okay, he wants to get there on the bishop. If I here, he's eventually winning quite a few pawns. This is maybe not the best process of doing it. So here, can I get behind something? That's the question. No, because he gets the rook around there. But I don't think white should be tying his rook there. The rook should have come around here. He had time to take this. This is just making it a little more complicated than it has to be. So the idea obviously is he can check here, and I have to, if I want to approach, I have to give up control of this square. I don't see another way to do that. My bishop wasn't in a position to block the check, so yeah. But it's looking a little dangerous because this pawn's 2 squares away from queening. So I think it was a draw with correct play, but obviously now I have to find the win. And what is the win? I think it's going to start with getting my bishop to a better square. I don't like the square it's on right now. So I'm going to attack the rook. And then do something like this. Block there. And now I am threatening this. So this is actually getting quite dangerous. He has to do that. And we block that. And then now maybe I can approach with the king. But I do have to be careful, so maybe I want to go this way actually with the king. I think that's better. Because if white were to trade, well, they couldn't have traded, so maybe that was fine. I could have just approached that way. If they trade too much off, he can easily pick up these pawns here. So white's going to be careful about getting mated now. I think this is losing finally. So yeah, difficult game. But I think we're going to take this. And it's checkmate in one move, with this becoming a queen. So I'll just send a message. I don't know if this is bad. And was he a good sport? Yeah, that was a good game. That was tough for my opponent. The end game, we'll do a review of that. What I was saying before in the other chapter about analyzing your games is just look back and try to work out, different moments you might have picked up. Now, this moment here about letting this pawn get very far advanced, maybe I shouldn't have been grabbing too many pawns. So we'll check that like a move like here or there even, because here obviously if he doesn't see, I have a tactic to pick up that pawn. And then obviously the blunder where I just lost a whole rook. So you can't be too careful. And maybe also in the part where I've won pieces. So we'll look at all these things now with the game review with this massive white screen. I just pause the recording while I'm waiting for this game review to load. Wow, my internet is slow as today. So yeah, well played from my opponent. A few strange moves out of the opening. Maybe a position with the Scandinavian that they weren't too familiar with. The end game was he did the right thing trying to check me, but he kind of was just a little bit too relaxed about these pawns. And I'm gonna guess that it was a drawn end game with that setup. Very interesting. I like, you can have a blunder, but you can get into some interesting gameplay. I wouldn't trust these ratings right here. It's got us up at like 2000, but some pretty good accuracy. And yeah, black was completely winning, and yes, it was a draw, as you can see from here. It was a draw, and then at some point he's just missed something and given me the win. So um, let's go through the moves, and rather than I'm just going to do the analysis directly rather than like looking at it basically chess.com has two sets of reviews. So one of them is using the Max engine, the other one's using this the engine that runs when you do, which is a bit weaker when you do the analysis and stuff. So yeah, f3 is a mistake. I thought it was a strange move. You're kind of taking up a square the knight wants to go to. And what would it prefer? Bishop d2, bishop e2. I think even knight f3 is probably fine. Yeah, you might see some bishop g4 there. Maybe he was worried about that. F3 is just giving up a bit of weaknesses. So I didn't like e6. So how would I have punished it? Knight c6, interesting. I'm not immediately sure why. So without looking, obviously you're on this pawn, but the queen is defending it. Interesting. Is there some e5 afterwards? Let's just check that out. Bishop b5 to pin the knight, but let's say he doesn't pin the knight. Let's just put a move like h3 on the board. Bishop f5. Okay, so you get a very quick queenside castle, I guess, and your rook's on the pawn. I guess that's the idea. So, anyways, we won't go too deep into that. E6 I think is okay. Bishop d3 is fine. C5 is fine. Just put pressure on the center. And now bishop b5, you're wasting time, like double moving. So you're kind of losing a bit of initiative. And we follow it up with that, and then you didn't have to give up the piece. The knight, even though it was pinned, my queen would have had to take that bishop and then break the pin, so the knight can recapture. So let's give up the piece, gives my bishop a good diagonal. Yeah, queen b6, so you're just staying on here, and you're asking a question about this pawn, which I think he just forgot about completely. And that's just big blunder. Yeah, and there's so many. Even if you move this knight away, like this one's coming, and the bishop can't go to e3, and it's coming with check, and then that's dropping. So Knight e4 was the best move, but so maybe this was, yeah, he was already completely lost here. Yeah, it's a just d3 check, so yeah. Might have been a practical try from him. Rook d8 and not castling, interesting. Okay, I think castling's fine. And queen e5. I thought afterwards, yeah, queen e5 would have been a better move. I just wanted to get my bishop out. H6 as well, top here. So finding just with some intuition, some top engine moves. Queen b4, the only square you can go to. And then this was a bit of a strange move, and the best response was probably not what I did. So let's just look at the lines we were looking at, which was, if you took here, I still don't think it's that bad. I thought maybe this rather. Rook takes, bishop takes. And I was looking at some, yeah, funny stuff like this, which apparently is fine. And then do you take right away? So takes, and you're just up a bishop, and everything's simplified a lot. So that was also fine. And then what if you just took here? He's just giving another piece. Is he getting anything for it? Because it didn't look like the evaluation was a whole extra piece, but he's just a second piece down now. Knight takes, queen takes. I don't know. Maybe I had a worse attack if he didn't play this. Anyways, I took with a bishop. He should have played c3. Interesting. Why is the queen? Just to kick it off this square. And so we took here. Made it. Oh my god, I forgot about this tactic. This is why I do tactic trainers, and I just missed it. Takes here, and just queen there. It's just made in 2 moves. Wow. Okay. Might have been some of you screaming for that. I just missed it. You know, the thing is, I'll take a little tangent. I do like the tactics trainers. I'm a cheapskate. I do the 5 free daily, and when you know it's a move where there's a tactic, you're always looking for these like captures and stuff. And it can be a super complicated position, but you're still looking for that. And then when it's just an average position, you might not be. You might be a bit switched off. And I just saw that this and threatened mate. But yeah, there's this. I didn't even need to bring the queen over. You have this rook. You'd have to throw the queen in front, and then that could take. So I wouldn't. I would have been able to do it without even the queen, because the bishop's covering here. Although, sorry, no, the king can go to g3. Yeah, so it is queen over. So yeah, missed a mate in 2 there. And he captured. I was thinking to take on g3, but I didn't really see the follow-up here. If he just took there, apparently I'm still fine. I guess there's a lot of threats, but I can't get to these squares, and the queen's defending that, so I didn't really see how that was helping me that much. This maybe allowed too much trading down, because as I said, he got that pawn, which was holding up the base. Knight takes g3 is fine. And knight f5 is the square you want to go to, and then I just need to stop this, basically. Either move the rook, or move the king over, or do anything, basically. I was just looking at rounding up this pawn, but yeah. Huge blunder. I'm still not lost, though. So I think at some point he kind of got it into a draw. So what's the approach? So they don't like taking that pawn. They want to take this first. Interesting. I guess you can always grab this pawn. How is white defending that pawn, right? Okay, so you want to take this first and then leave this as another option. And I guess what's the benefit of doing that? Because I kind of did that in this move order. Is maybe, I mean, this pawn also stops my king from going to f6, which is where I wanted to put it. So let's just walk through that a little bit, because I was wondering how to hold this. I felt I should be better, but so if you bring the rook here, knight h4 check. You're putting your pieces on some strange squares, but okay. Okay, so do you not want to come here because of the bishop check? Yeah, you don't want that. So the king's got to go. And if the king went there, then you'd have this, and you're defending the pawn. Interesting. So it's just about putting the king on a worse square. Now the king's kind of sidelined a little bit. Now you come back to d4. You're holding that pawn. What about c3? Bishop b6. I guess eventually some kind of rook b8, yeah, to get into here, because then the king's forced backwards. Um, well, the computer doesn't really mind that. Actually, there's very specific lines to actually winning this, because I think if you're not careful, king g4, so the king's picking off these weak pawns. So there's some very, again, this is what I meant about going too deep into engine lines. There's very specific lines about this, and then maybe once you get attacked, okay, then you pick up this with check. So, yeah, all right, so we'll go with what happened in the game. So it took here, rook a8. So again, knight h4 it wants. And without doing that, this is a bit tricky, right? Yeah, my king is, it doesn't like king f6, king d6 it wants. So it wants the king to be closer to these pawns. I guess the bishop's holding this, so is the knight. Um, that's interesting. So just have the king around to shepherd these pawns. I thought I needed it here. It was very safe between all these pawns. It couldn't really be hit, and these pawns are also super fragile. They don't defend each other. But interesting. So I went there. 93 is correct. So you do have time to pick up the pawn, and it's a draw. Okay, so there's a very specific path to getting an advantage. I missed that. Knight d4 first. Interesting. Or knight b4. Okay. So I might have been a bit slow here. But otherwise, anyways, still a draw. And I think the idea with this is that he can just go a6, right? So unless he doesn't make a move, even h3 is fine. King g2 and this. And yeah, you could just do this and fork the two pieces. So, and you'd have to give up one anyway. So I think end of the day, you're always giving up one. And why it's a draw is that these pawns just can't make forward progress unless your opponent slips up, which is a bit what I went for, the Magnus grind. Rook a8 was a good move, and I think his idea was the correct one. With this, yeah. So could I have stopped that? I don't think so. I had to just take, and yeah, his idea was say something like this. Yeah, big blunder because of that. So you have to just watch out for those things. That's a common tactic. If your king is on a file that can be checked and you're not looking at the queening square, black can queen. I think it's even possible if you have a rook looking at that square and your king is close enough to here or something, or if your king's close enough, maybe it's fine. I can't remember. Anyways, I had to give that up. I think there was no other option. Yeah, and g4 was good. Yeah, I didn't like that either. G3, I just didn't see any play for me. My bishop's stuck here. As soon as he gets the rook over here, what am I doing really? Like the king's getting in there, and I'm not really knocking any pieces out of. I guess he does have it. Could be like a zugzwang, maybe. Yeah, could be a zugzwang. Have to be careful not to get mated like that. um, but yeah, I just didn't. I wanted my bishop to stay flexible, so that's why I played that. Yeah, you can check. Um, just one more thing, bishop here wouldn't work because of the check. And my king's forced to go in. You can pick that up. So it was at the top square they wanted it on. Bishop b8 or d6. Okay, I don't think it really matters. It's all a draw. Bishop e7. Yeah. Now I wanted to build a bridge. Okay, now there's something maybe. So now I should have gone for e5. What did I play? I played g3. This pawn's keeping the king out of there. Just e5, and there's maybe something, I don't really know. There's that much. Oh, there's only one move. King d3, interesting. I'm just going down these lines because I was curious if there was actually a win. So what if you approach not to come around this way? King e2, white's king is getting in position, and if you come here, king f2, you can always burn moves like this if you need to get into zugzwang. So the problem is the light square. How do I push pieces off the light square? I can with like g5 to hold the bishop, and then that pawn just is free to move. But I could already push it. King f1, e3. Sometimes you give the engine time, they'll see they have a horizon effect with pawns queening. Yeah, I don't know if there's actually anything here. Not sure. g5. Yeah, it's just these pawns are just too split, and the light squares I don't really have support for it. So we'll carry on with what was played. Obviously, I let the white king into this ideal square just to blockade stuff. I didn't want to put my king there. It's just I didn't see. Oh yeah, I was dropping the bishop. That's why. So we'll find out what point white kind of slipped up here. So I think this is all correct from white, and then white should just go after. So this was the thing. The checks were maybe clever. I think I should do something like this and say I'm just trying to push greedily. So it can't actually take there. I was wondering about this because I was thinking to give up the bishop, right? And it can't take this, yeah, because you just queen. And it's already lost here, so it would have had to find... But this was my plan, right? King f1, which is still fine apparently. But now you're making progress. I don't know. King e2, stop king f3. And then you're in time. Yeah. You can't push this pawn because he can take this one and then stop the queening, and you can't really approach the rook because he can just kind of weave back and forth. And if you come this way, yeah, that you're not winning, right? Yeah, because he can get this one. So yeah, stopping the king from getting to f3 is the key here. So that was my plan. And then I thought it was clever when he started checking me, because now he's driving me away from... I can't really go this way, and he's driving me away from coming here with my king, and also from and also if he went for this and I tried the same thing, he can do this now because my king's in check, right? I can't do that. So I thought that was clever. I would have had to waste a move getting back over. But I don't know why he just never went for this g4 pawn. It kind of made things more difficult. Still draw here. Still all drawn. It's a brilliant move, apparently, because he can get over here. I thought this was good. Just, kind of ask him some questions. How are you getting over? Maybe now my king can get over. But I think as soon as I go there, white can just go there. So again, it's still fine. And this was the mistake. Okay. Yeah, allowing my king to get into there, and you don't have the check along here. That was a mistake. So he's got to give himself that. Oh, there's only two. Wow. Why couldn't he go, for example, here? Go king f5. Okay, but then he can go for that. g2, okay, and I'm forcing through one of these. And if he's going for that, and I'm able to hold this pawn and promote that pawn. Wow. Okay, so he's got to go to one of these squares and check me from behind, basically. Like that. That's the only way. Okay, so right at the end. So very interesting. You just want to keep asking questions from your opponent. And yeah, that's just a mate in 2 there. I think even here there isn't much saving because I'm getting these moves in or this move in. And he doesn't have a check here. And he doesn't have time for the check because these are coming with checks. So yeah, in the end, a good game. Few blunders, bit of strange play from my part, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And I'll make these into chapters, right? So you don't have to sit through everything if you're not interested. But have a good day, and see you guys for the next one.